This is the College Football Connection Podcast with Alvin, Reid, Bradford, Bruns, and Marty Jenkins on 101 ESPN.
May not be college game day approved, but give us that primetime platform in Como. What's up, everybody? Bradford, Bruns, Alvin, Reid back with you for week number 4. Believe it or not, my friend, week number 4 already of the College Football Connection, only on 101 ESPN, that YouTube channel, and 101ESPN.com. We are T-minus about 32 hours from kickoff at Memorial Stadium, Columbia versus Columbia. But that is just an appetizer of sorts for a gauntlet of big-time contests that we have this weekend, Alvin.
Absolutely. Now, if somebody had told you week 4, leading up to the games on Saturday, it would be 95 degrees outside all week, would you have said, like, no way?
No
way. Lord have mercy.
Goodness
Man,
gracious.
I'm ready for fall. How about you?
You can say that again 1 week after dealing with the sweltering 90-degree temperatures there at Memorial, too.
You know, it was hot Saturday. Yeah, I was out at our festival in Kirkwood, Green Tree Festival. Dude, it was hot Saturday. I thought about you. Hydrate, brother. Hydrate.
And let me tell you this much. I didn't spend a surplus of time on the field prior to that game. A game in which Mizzou was able to prevail, of course, by that final of 52-10 against Louisiana. Of course, bigger fish, if you will, to fry this coming weekend versus South Carolina. We're talking about that one. We're talking about the status of the other quarterback, the Heisman contender who could have been LaNorris Sellers. And you have a road trip also on the horizon as well, my friend. But we are going big with 7 picks on this occasion. So after a banner weekend, again, you're 21-16 overall so far this year, buddy.
I'm holding steady, baby.
You're doing your thing.
5-5 last week.
We shall see.
Should have followed your lead, though. Should have been 6-5. Should have taken Missouri to cover. Left it blank, said I wasn't sure coming off that game against KU what Missouri was going to do, and 10 minutes into that game said, like, dude, you should have just picked him to cover.
Hey, if I were sticking with just the proceedings at Faurot Field so far this campaign, I would be doing perfectly fine, perfectly well, but that is where we will commence our coverage once again, because this is an interesting contest, to say the least, buddy. We have right now Missouri coming in at number 23, entering a primetime game, 6 o'clock. No, the national outlets won't be there to the same degree for which maybe we would have hoped a week or so ago.
But that's South Carolina's fault. That's not Missouri's fault.
That's right. And it's still South Carolina. It's still a team that should, as of the last update we received last night, LaNorris Sellers knocked out, concussed in last weekend's shocking loss to Vanderbilt, and at home as well.
At home?
Williams-Brice Stadium, 31-7. LaNorris Sellers, earlier in the week, the status went from questionable now to probable, and the head coach there, Shane Beamer, talking about how it is instrumental that you're going through those practices on Tuesday, on Wednesday. By all accounts, Sellers able to do so. Therefore, we have witnessed quite a bit in the way of movement on that line. Missouri now favored by 9.5, whereas a few days ago, Alvin, it was 12.5. Still a pretty big number, despite the gargantuan success MU has enjoyed so far this season. Another rout last weekend, but a lot of that has to do with the unpredictable nature of this South Carolina attack, the offensive attack to wit, because even though Sellers, he was injured in the first half of that contest, he left the game against Vandy, SC was still losing at that time. And this does not look like remotely the same guy who last season counted for 25 touchdowns, over 3,200 combined yards. We talked about it so far on the CFC, Alvin. We've talked about how opposing defensive coordinators, especially in that league, in the SEC, when the book is out on you, so to speak, and the adjustments have to be made, to put it mildly, he has had difficulty in terms of progressing purely as a passer. Pedestrian statistics, pedestrian performance so far this year, but he is also the best shot you have to compete in Como on Saturday night.
All right, 2 things. One, going back to, like, high school football, even at lower, box your ends, contain him.
Yeah.
Don't crash down on him. He'll go inside of you, he'll go outside of you. Just contain him in the box and make him be a quarterback. I think that has been successful. 2, granted, you don't have a game plan. You didn't go into that Vandy game thinking that he's not going to play 3/4 of the game. But here's the problem with that. Shouldn't South Carolina beat Vanderbilt if Beamer had just decided, LaNorris, you're not going to play today? Okay, I just decided you're not going to play. Okay, shouldn't South Carolina not be getting whooped at home like that.
But you don't have a backup QB, and your entire offense revolves around him.
I hear you. But it seems to me you should be able to line up and play Vanderbilt close game if you ran the ball 95% of the time.
You'd hope so.
South Carolina is not that team.
No.
As the saying, as the kids say, it ain't him. And I think that's why I got Missouri covering. I do. I think we're going over the 48-5, and I got Missouri covering. I just don't think South Carolina has got it together this year. I think they're hurting in other places. Vandy, like I say, seasoned quarterback is an understatement, but they're ringing up 31 on you, and I think they had 30 first downs or something like that. Now, maybe South Carolina was just a shock. I don't know. But if that's the best you could put forth at home against Vandy, I think Missouri covers.
And I don't think it's a coincidence because with the exception, Alvin, of a couple of those splash plays we saw in the opener versus Virginia Tech down there in Atlanta, this has not been the same offense. You mentioned the ground game as well, the fact that you can't line up this year. Last season, frankly, they were better equipped to be able to handle that business on the ground because you had Rocket Sanders, somebody who was going on to the NFL. This year, between Faison as well as Attaway, you're not seeing that same burst coming out of the backfield as well. And even though so many people want to talk about the track star at wide receiver, the number one wideout, Alvin, the team leader in receptions, he has 7.
Right.
He has 7 right now. So where is the continuity? Where is the ability to basically sustain drives going up and down the field? And for me, if you're Missouri entering this contest, whether Sellers is basically all there, whether he is able to put on his best performance of sorts, you are operating in a containment capacity a la the game plan you utilized to pretty good effect for long stretches against Jalen Daniels and KU. You don't want him to get on the outside because if he is forced to be pressed up into the pocket, he has consistently demonstrated this season he is not able to go through those progressions just yet. He can't quite get through all of those, the succession of reads there. So if Zion Young and company on the D-line, if they're disciplined, as well as that linebacker, Josiah Trotter, if you're staying with your run fits, if you're staying in those gaps, you hope for relative containment. Even though I like both of these offenses, you love what Perbula has obviously done so far. It is zooming along. And goodness, Alvin, if Ahmad Hardy hadn't been known by most of the national types prior to that performance against Louisiana, 250, 3 tutties, the physicality and the breakaway strength. I think South Carolina's defense, front 7, is going to have a lot of trouble trying to contain him.
I agree. And you made a good point. Last year, on top of everything that Sellers did at the other Columbia, they rushed for, just the running backs had rushed for over 100 yards. Take that away, and it's just him. And it might be him banged up. I really, especially in college, I don't think they're sending, I won't call them kids, young men out there the week after they, had to go through the protocol maybe as quickly as they would in the National Football League. So my guess is he's okay.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean he's going to play okay.
That was scary, though. Helmet to helmet.
Helmet to helmet. And that's one, it's like getting your bell rung is one that now you're out of the game. Maybe he wasn't all the way like concussed or whatever, but, look, it's college. It isn't like you're going to sit out a few series and go back in the game. They just said you're done for the day. So, I understand that. So we'll see. I will say this. If he can find even some of the performance that he had last year, then South Carolina not only has a chance to cover, but possibly win because he took that game over completely. And I don't know if he's got that in him, and I don't know if Missouri's defense could get to the point where they allow it. But, we both saw it. It was like Sellers versus the defense in the fourth quarter, and he just did it.
Oh, yeah.
So I would, I think Missouri doesn't want to look up in the fourth quarter and say, like, oh, wow, we're leading by 4 points. Yeah. Because then they'll just hike it to him and say, like, do your thing, man.
And credit to you. During our SEC preview a couple of months ago, you mentioned that the hero ball component there, the fact that everything, this entire engine, the catalyst has to be Sellers and essentially nobody else. You expressed some reservations. They seem to be very, very justifiable at this point. This is, though, a gotta-have-it game for South Carolina.
Oh, yeah.
Desperation mode there. Yeah. That's what made me really leery earlier in the week when you had a little more in the way of questions as far as, okay, the status there. When that figure was at 12.5, even 13, I was gun-shy about
12.5
with MU. Yeah,
yes,
absolutely.
Exactly.
Now at 9.5, I think that Missouri, even though Sellers, I do anticipate a markedly superior performance from him on Saturday night. I think he has one of those tilts. With how dominant, outright dominant Missouri has been, especially up front, the O-line there. I think you control the line of scrimmage. Now, Caden Green does have a probable tag designated for him as well. But they are clicking, they are moving along, and this defense appears to be right in line with the unit we saw a year ago. Having said that, the potential for a lot of points, nighttime in Columbia, very enticing for me as well. So I'll take Missouri minus 9.5 and also over 48.5. Mizzou hasn't failed me yet.
All right.
Hasn't failed me yet.
And I got both of those too. I think we're seeing the same game come up on Saturday night. One last caveat on South Carolina: that Virginia Tech win looks worse every week. They're ready to fire the coach down there. They're pretty much naming who they want to coach the team next year down at Virginia Tech and Hokie Land. So that South Carolina win now has really lost its luster too.
Goodbye, Mr. Pry. Goodbye, one Deshaun Watson or Deshaun Foster.
Foster.
My goodness,
Oh, my
UCLA.
gosh.
We called that last week.
Well, I did. I put in my column. I said, like, hey, there's not a lot of black coaches out there in the Power Four conferences. So it's sad when one gets let go. Not Deshaun Foster. I would, if they called me and said, "What you want to do with Deshaun Foster?" Fire him tonight.
All of the Deshaun's are out of commission.
Deshaun's,
we'll just be clear.
Much, right.
From a game right now in that upper 40s territory, 48.5. The Illini, Alvin, this weekend in a game predicted to perhaps encroach upon the low 50s. That's right, because you're traveling to another Memorial Stadium, Bloomington, the first top 10 home game for Indiana since all the way back 1987. Curtis Signetti, get those boys ready. Undefeateds going down between Illinois, number 9 Illinois, and number 19 Indiana. Marty's boys, this one, well, Alvin, I am more than skeptical here. And I've been more than skeptical during the course of the week because I simply cannot fathom how this team, albeit at home, is favored by 6.5 over Brett Bielema's program. Over under there at 52.5. And even though Illinois, you can poke holes so far in the early season resume, especially since now that Duke win looks not exactly as great as it did at the time, even though it occurred on the road. But Indiana, to me, Alvin, has faced decidedly less in the way of competition. Both offenses roaring, although I do maybe have some minor reservations as it pertains to the Illinois offensive line. Look, the shutout against Western Michigan last weekend, that's one thing. But we're seeing a consistent pattern here, especially in the first halves of these games, of the O-line, even with all 5 guys returning from a year ago, not really being able to carry the freight, dominate there at the point of attack. Altmaier's been more than fine. He has 0 picks on the season. He has done his job. You're still waiting to see what you're going to get from the ground game, I think, as well, who's going to really step up and be the number 1. Maybe it's Frazier, maybe it's not. But it is a dangerous environment. These guys are going to be ready to go in Bloomington because the next few games presenting an absolute gauntlet for Signetti and company. The Big Ten Conference schedule begins now.
And we are not alone, okay? If you listen to any prognostication show right now on college football, everybody's scratching their head. What is this about? The preseason rankings said Illinois was a better football team. The preseason player rankings said Illinois had the better quarterback. What has gone on is that Illinois has not lost a football game. 6.5 points, Bradford. That's almost a touchdown. And granted, God bless Indiana. Memorial Stadium, that ain't Death Valley. Now, probably that's because they haven't had a lot of successful football teams over the years.
Fair enough.
So it doesn't have that, aura about it. I don't get this one. I have to take Illinois. If you're giving me 6.5 points,
thank you.
Don't you have to take Illinois? Is there anybody that says, yes, Indiana is going to beat Illinois by a touchdown? No. I don't know. What do they say? They know something out there in Las Vegas. Well, what do they know?
Well, see, here's the thing, though. You were getting these figures. They've been consistent, really, at 6.5, we should clarify. That has been the case even since we learned that the all Big Ten quarterback, Scott, would be missing this contest in all likelihood. So I don't understand it.
I don't understand it either. It hasn't moved. I thought it was, that was one of those where it's like, I don't know what that's about right now, but that'll ratchet its way down. 3 points, 4 points. That's what I was thinking. It is held steady. This one, I honestly don't get. I told somebody on Thursday night, Illinois fan, friend Dan, Illinois fan, went to school there. I told him, man, that's jumping off the page at me. And I'm sorry, when they jump off the page, you got to take action.
That's right.
Right. Alvin did not take action on Buffalo giving Miami 12.5 points last night.
Oh, wow.
And I'm sitting there thinking, like, 12.5 in an NFL game. Football gonna football. All right. But left it alone. You know, Dolphins in disarray. Not to make this a pro show, but what? 10 points. Would have covered. You know, had you taken Miami. This one's screaming. Dude, take them 6.5 points. Take Illinois. I also think that Indiana will be able to score some points. I'm going to take the over on that.
Interesting.
I will take the over because that's one in my head. I could 27, 24, something like that. You know, I think that'll get the job done.
Okay.
Pretty much, or I guess you need a few more points than that. I think one team will have 4 touchdowns. Now, whether the other can get 4 touchdowns, I don't know. But I think by hook or by crook, I think they both are kind of high 20s before it's all said and done.
Okay.
Illinois starts slow, but then Illinois' second halves have been pretty damn good.
Let's go. Make those adjustments after the break.
I kind of see this playing out the same way.
Now, speaking of adjustments, though, I do feel as if Indiana is actually going to be the team that has to make more of them entering this Week 4 tilt in Bloomington. And here's why I say that, because an underrated aspect or storyline to this particular contest, hey, Mendoza has been great. I would argue even better than Rourke at the controls of Cignetti's offense so far in 2025. But an under-the-radar injury here to be monitoring. The fact that you're not going to have the guy who was your home run hitter in the backfield,
yes.
Lee Beebe Jr., he's now down in all likelihood for the season, non-contact injury.
You're going to say he wasn't in practice.
You hate to see it. 7.7 yards on average. So that's not to say Mendoza, who also doesn't have a pick on this season, he's generated everything for this offense, that he can't be extremely adept and really carve up to some degree in Illinois secondary that's not going to have, as we mentioned, Scott, as well. But if you're asking me here, the style of football, especially on the road, that Brett Bielema wants, that he covets, that he demands, keeping that score down and keeping the ball time of possession here. I look, Alvin, conversely at 52.5, and I say that is way too high for me. I, too, am taking Illinois naturally, but 52.5, mark me down for the under there, because I also think Indiana now knows. We've talked about Altmaier. We've talked about Illinois being able to really ratchet things up offensively in the second halves of these contests. Well, Hank Beatty, who is now circled on everybody's calendar per se, you have to be able to take him out of the game if you are Indiana to some degree. And therefore, I do think that some drives are going to be a little more stagnant than we may expect, that the odds makers are thinking too.
Well, I'll tell you what, and aren't the odds makers saying if Indiana is favored by 6.5 at home, aren't they saying that Indiana would beat Illinois in a football game if it was in Champaign? Or at least they would still favor Indiana? That's what I can't buy.
That's what I'm inferring.
Yeah, you have to infer that you're telling me that you think Indiana would cover 1.5, 2.5 on the road at Champaign. I'm not buying it.
No, at the end of the night, I think Illinois maintains its highest ranking in the AP Top 25 poll since all the way back in 2001. And believe it or not, this is actually the first time these two teams have matched up as ranked opponents.
As ranked opponents.
1950.
Yes.
1950.
Yeah.
My goodness gracious.
Right. And by the way, the first season that I was not in Danville covering some Big Ten football was 1987. I had just went to Lansing, Michigan.
All right.
So that's when they came up. I said, I had just left. That was the season that I was up in Michigan, and I thought so maybe I was Indiana's bad luck charm for 4 years. They got it together after I left.
Could have been the master of the segue, Alvin Reid. Right. Bradford Bruns with you on the College Football Connection. It is 101 ESPN, the YouTube channel, and 101ESPN.com. Not Lansing, Michigan, Alvin, but rather Ann Arbor. So the boys from Ann Arbor, the Wolverines, ranked number 21 at present. Favorites by just 1.5. They are traveling. They are on the road. They are headed to Lincoln for a 2:30 p.m. kickoff tomorrow afternoon against Nebraska. Look, Nebraska hasn't played anybody.
Thank you.
Nebraska's undefeated. Michigan, obviously, in that realm as well. But what should have been a more dominant, a more authoritative, and commanding Week 1 victory with Travis Kelce, with Taylor, with Pat, everybody on the scene there. That didn't come to fruition versus Cincinnati. Cincinnati almost took that game from Nebraska, if not for the late interception in the end zone.
Yeah.
So I'm not entirely sure what to expect, even at home, from Matt Rule's team. A lot of preseason buzz, almost a la Oklahoma, as far as being maybe a dark horse contender. And boy, is that schedule pretty favorable down the stretch. But you have to take care of business here. And to me, the biggest storyline to monitor, Alvin, is how does one Bryce Underwood respond and basically rectify some of the wrongs that he experienced in his very first road start a couple of weeks ago against Oklahoma. That one did not go well. You're going into that nighttime, primetime showcase there in Norman. It was pretty terrible. Okay, he rebounded. He did what he had to do last weekend against an inferior foe. So can you move the football consistently against this defense? And also, can you keep Raiola on the other side away from some of those heroics too? He's been astounding so far this season. It's tough for me to really have a feel for this one way or the other. And also, when I look at the 46.5 figure with respect to the over-under, this is one of the most difficult matchups we have here among the 7 to be picked on the CFC. Michigan, the defense, it's enticing. The sheer talent of Underwood is enticing. But if Nebraska truly wants to make a statement in the conference, it needs to happen here.
Absolutely. Now, if you wanted to gain an experience that would help you playing at Nebraska, you're a true freshman and that's playing at Oklahoma. Same thing. Sea of Red. The stadiums are even similar. Not on the outside, but once you're inside them, they're all on top of you. Everybody's got red on. The whole 9 yards. So he did get to experience that. I think Michigan is better than Nebraska. I think Nebraska, God bless their fans, but the whole thing since the move to the Big Ten, they have thought that they were a better football team than they are. Now, here's your chance to beat a Michigan team that is not that team that won the national championship. Don't get me wrong. Mm-hmm. But can you beat this Michigan team? And, like you say, Michigan, give it 1.5. I'm going to take it. I'm going to take the Wolverines in this one. I think it's experience in big games, never mind the quarterback. But you got, your two interior lines, your defense, your offense has got more players that have been through more situations like this than Nebraska. And as you said, Cincinnati, middle of the pack, Big 12 team.
If that,
that's what I'm saying. Man, you couldn't put them away. Late interception saved you. I like Michigan. I'm going to give the 1.5 to Nebraska on that one.
I have absolutely no reason to feel great about this selection, and I don't. But I'm going with my gut. Now, great. Last weekend you had Houston Christian in the house. You basically donated $500,000 to the institution. God bless. You scored on your first 8 possessions. If you're Nebraska, your starters didn't even have to go out there in the second half. You are not there as a program. You're not back to where you were. You're probably never going to be. We had this conversation a few weeks ago. But you're not good enough to essentially be sleepwalking or perhaps playing possum against these lesser-than foes. But that's what we've observed so far from Nebraska on the still young season. At the same time, I don't think that Michigan is gifted enough offensively. Let's say that Underwood has another turnover or two. Let's say that early on in the first quarter, the crowd is amped up. You're feeling it in Lincoln. Nebraska is able to gain that early edge. If you're Michigan, you don't want, by any means, to be playing from behind. And yet I just sense that's what's going to happen on this occasion. I'm steering clear of that over-under number. But I do think Nebraska, even if it's just by a point at the end, late touchdown, late extra point, what have you, because it's in Lincoln, this line would be drastically different in Ann Arbor, the big house. I'll roll with the Huskers here. And this has been from a pro-Michigan guy over the last 2 years on the CFC.
Okay, I'm going back to a game last year that I thought Nebraska was going to stomp somebody and they lost to Colorado. Do you remember that?
I do.
I'm kind of thinking to myself, like, you see, here we go again.
Was that a big noon kickoff?
I believe it was.
Yeah. It was early.
But we said everything pointed to Nebraska with that football game.
Did.
Right? Oh, Nebraska. Oh, I had them covering over. They going to blast Dion. Now, didn't happen. That's why I'm just looking at Nebraska. Okay, it's not like you're favored by 4 points or whatever. You're getting 1.5. But you got to prove it to me. And I think Underwood plays better. I do. And put it this way. Let's say, hey, son, you can't turn the ball over.
Nope.
If you don't turn the ball over, we'll beat Michigan. I think they'll drum that into his ears.
Somebody who has been extremely adept at the controls, though. We're taking it elsewhere as we move along on the college football
I'm going to pop
connection.
the under on that one, too, by the way.
Very good.
I'm going to do the under on the 46.5. I don't think we're having a lot of points, but I think Michigan tops them by 2 points at least.
Could be. From 46.5 to 47.5, that is the number that is being thrown out there for Auburn, as well as the team a couple of weeks ago that knocked off those Wolverines, John Mateer and the Sooners. So Auburn has been able to climb up to number 22. Now, good start to the season. You absolutely had to have it for Hugh Freeze this year in the Plains. But that's not where you're playing this weekend. That's not where you're playing tomorrow, because at 2:30 as well, Norman bound once more. The Sooners favored now by 7.5. That makes this more of a tricky proposition. From 6.5 to 7.5, over under at 47.5. And Mateer, along with my guy, I will say it, Carson Beck, co-favorites at this point in time, September 19th for the Heisman. What I have found to be very intriguing so far, though, Alvin, as far as how this season has started for OU. You knew that Mateer would be entrusted with the keys, along with Arbuckle, that package deal coming from the Pacific Northwest. Oklahoma hasn't had to. Oklahoma hasn't seemingly had an interest in running the football all season. Now, I don't know exactly why that has been the case, because I figured with the Cal transfer, Jaden Ott, coming on board, I thought he would be the guy. He's hardly played. Instead, it's the freshman, actually, Blaylock, more of the big play guy in that particular category. And yet, Oklahoma, and it almost seems as if Oklahoma, especially at home, can afford to be one-dimensional. I don't know if you can do that here against a pretty respectable front seven for Auburn. Now, you do have the issue. R. Mason Thomas, for the Sooners defense, that is. He is out for the first half of this game. Targeting. Ejected last weekend. I think this one is a bit more of a rough and tumble start. It's haphazard there in the mid-afternoon. But you would be hard-pressed, I think, to bet against Oklahoma here, given just how explosive Mateer in particular has been in 25.
Well, that point made a difference, because that 6.5 to 7.5
does for me.
That pushed me to Auburn. Okay, that pushed me Auburn to cover if you're going to give me those points. Mateer cannot play every game like he's played, especially that first game. Okay, against Michigan. Granted, it was super watching him play that way. He can't take all them hits. He's trying to run dudes over and is running guys over. Auburn is staunch up front. They're an SEC team. They're playing some pretty solid football right now. I think Oklahoma has to run the ball. Hit the nail on the head there, Bradford. We got to find some offense other than Mateer make a great pass, Mateer run the ball, Mateer, you're about to get sacked, get away, pick up a first down. They got to get away from that. I think they do in this game, but I think Auburn really sticks close. I think this is going to be a close football game.
I think it's going to be incredibly close in the first half, and don't think for a second that one Jackson Arnold isn't highly motivated. Now, irrespective of the setting here, going back to Norman, where he was supposed to have been the guy, the savior at quarterback. He started 9 games last fall, and that brings me to my point, because who understands the tendencies better than Brent Venables as far as what he can and cannot do for Auburn? Now, he's been just fine. He's been better than functional so far this campaign, Alvin, but he also, frankly, hasn't been asked to do that much. He's been dinking and dunking it, dare I say, to death, and you have to think that guys like Singleton and Coleman, Auburn has extraordinary talent at wide receiver. When is this team going to be able to open it up? I don't think it happens here on the road. I think that you're trying to preserve the football. You're trying to value all of these possessions. But by the same token, you know that the guy on the other side totally and completely has the confidence to be able to do that against the Tigers defense. I think the secondary here is going to be what ultimately allows Auburn to succumb. And at any point, if you're under double digits here, I was wavering, I was fluctuating, but I will roll with the Sooners minus 7.5. That over-under figure, some late scores, I believe, in the fourth quarter, one way or another. They'll take it to the 50s. Let's go over.
I'm going to go with the under on that one, because I think Auburn's game plan has to be, they're not going to say this out loud in the, locker room. It's like, if 50 points get scored in this game, I don't think it's us. I mean, total. In other words, we got to hold them down. We have to hold them down, or else we're probably not going to win. Mm-hmm. And, God bless the kid going back to Oklahoma. But when he transferred, I'm sure he was saying, I want to go back to Oklahoma where people blame me for last season.
I didn't have a line. Come on.
I know, right. And all of the receivers were hurt. Look, I hear you, man. But when it was all said and done, it's like, oh, no, if we'd had a quarterback, we'd have won some of these games with no receivers.
Yeah.
And that's not fair. But he played some bad games. He played some bad home games. Mm-hmm. And now you're going back to that house of horrors, in your own eyes. I don't know about that one. But I think Auburn keeps it close because I think Auburn's going to run the ball a lot.
Yeah.
And I think Auburn's going to be, if they come up to the line of scrimmage and there's 12 seconds on the play clock, they'll just stand there for 10 seconds and then run a play.
That's the key. As much as we want to talk about the quarterbacks, it's going to be, can OU also demonstrate a little more balance? Auburn's run D only permitting 67.5 yards per game.
They're going to have to, Oklahoma's going to have to run the ball. People are talking about Oklahoma as a dark horse to win the SEC, or at least get to the SEC championship game. They're not going to get there if Mateer is leading you in rushing. It's just not going to happen.
Kansas City-esque when it comes to Patrick Mahomes having to do everything, devil-may-care attitude.
Gosh, I tell him, look, if we don't go to the playoffs, we don't go to the playoffs. But you getting busted up this early in the season, no, quit running the ball. That's what I tell him.
We shall see if anything changes whatsoever. Heaven help us if it doesn't against New York. But no, we're not talking about Arrowhead any longer. We're talking about playoff aspirations, maybe for a couple of teams in close proximity, maybe to that very stadium, though at least when you're talking about down the stretch. Texas Tech, Utah, let's go Big 12 style here, Alvin, as we move along on the College Football Connection on a Friday in studio live in Creve Coeur for you here on 101 ESPN, that YouTube channel. 17th ranked Red Raiders. I think we all felt as if that team, you should be starting this season at 3-0, but now having to travel out 11 o'clock kickoff. That is dicey, to say the least.
6,500 feet?
6,500?
But I said, never mind Mile High.
Rice Eccles? Buzzing, because those Utes, they're undefeated as well.
They're undefeated?
They're number 16. They are 3.5-point favorites. Over-under of, buckle in for this one, buckle up, 57.5. But, Alvin, when you examine the way in which both of these quarterbacks have played so far this season, whether you're talking about the nation's highest scoring attack in Texas Tech thus far, or even Utah as well with the new man at the controls, these teams are going up and down the field with the utmost regularity. Kind of feels to me as if it's a game in which team ultimately has the ball last, frankly.
I agree with you. I'll tell you, Utah, I think, is a little bit better, but I'll tell you what, Utah's got a better coach. Kyle Whittingham can coach.
Yes, he can.
Okay? And I ain't hating on Sonny Dykes. Right, not Sonny Dykes. But anyway, Whittingham can coach. And it's a home game. A lot's been going on in Utah. I think these folks need some joy back in the state. I think Utah provides it. I think they take care of Texas Tech. I won't say with ease, but they cover that 3.5. Man, it's a tough place to play. And Utah's got aspirations. Utah's got Big 12 championship game aspirations. And they're off to a pretty good start. But how better to keep this thing going than by beating a ranked Texas Tech team?
Exactly.
And I think that they do that. And believe it or not, they're blasted over this 57-5. I think both teams will be able to score. It's kind of like that, man, I didn't think Notre Dame and Texas A&M could put up anywhere near that many points. I don't know what that was about, but this one is one where I won't be surprised.
Yeah.
Texas Tech's got the ball, and it's 35-27, and it's like if we score a touchdown, if we get it and make the 2-point conversion, we could force a tie. I could see a 35-27 game. I could say, I could see that.
You saw a decent number of games in the 80s just a few days ago.
Right.
Put this one, in my humble estimation, in the same category, because going into the second half, now I do think you could envision more of a sleepy start to the proceedings out there for obvious reasons, but when you're talking about Baron Morton, when you're talking about somebody who has already fired off 11 touchdown passes, and then to wit, you have that balance as well offensively for Tech, and Devin Dampier has been phenomenal as well for Utah, coming over from New Mexico, and I don't think we could have anticipated just how stellar he has been to start this season. The dual threat is there. The balance is there for Utah. I've been going back and forth all week, back and forth. Not about the over-under. I have been adamant about the over there. But 3.5, if it were 3, if it were even in that 6.5 to 7 range, I'll roll with the home team. And I'm not even going to say it begrudgingly, because Dampier not only has been able to take care of the football, but when you get him on the outside as well. That, to me, is the difference here in terms of making plays down the stretch in a key spot. He's demonstrated he can do it with his feet as well. That gives him the leg up, I believe, in this setting, in this instance, over Morton. But this is going to be a heck of a ball game.
Absolutely. I'm really looking forward to this one, especially because it's so early. And I'll tell you what, New Mexico, granted, UCLA's got problems, but, New Mexico rolled them. And this guy left New Mexico with the offensive coordinator. They go to Utah. They're playing good football.
Yeah.
I think that, it doesn't what New Mexico did against UCLA, has nothing to do with this game other than New Mexico is still pretty good, which means I think this quarterback offensive coordinator duo are pretty good. Put that with the head coach, as we said, and I think Utah takes care of Texas Tech.
Yes.
I'm pretty confident in this one.
And suffice it to say, for the first time this season, we expect Morton for Texas Tech actually to play in the fourth quarter. That's right. He's been ripped. Hasn't had to play in the first three quarters of a game this season because you've rolled up, 174 combined points.
Right, and that does go into not only have you not played anybody, but you've also now got to play at altitude in a real game that's going to be 4 quarters.
Exactly right.
Right. I don't think the game, Indiana's game, where all of the starters are out of the game. I don't think that. What can you do? You got to leave. You got to take them out because you don't want to. You're not there to just embarrass some other team.
For sure.
But at the same time, I don't think that's the best thing going into a big game the next week. What did you guys do the second half? Watched? Nah, I don't know about that. So, yeah, I think Texas Tech runs into a very tough team, a very emotionally driven team. I like Utah in this one.
I don't think anybody in Lawrence tomorrow night will be upset if there's some embarrassment going on when it comes to the opposition. Alvin, your Jayhawks, after a breather, after a respite, regrouping and recalibrating. Following the border war loss, there has been time to settle in and to get healthy as well.
Yeah, that's what was important.
And as such, 13.5-point favorite right now, heading into battle with Rich Rod squad. West Virginia up and down those Mountaineers. We knew they would be this season. It's a ride regardless when you're talking about Rich Rodriguez. But I am interested here by the over-under for this contest. 5 p.m. kickoff, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct.
Maybe some weather could at some point come into play.
At least the first half, supposedly. We'll see what... I'll wake up in the morning and see, is it rain gear? Is it shorts? It's one of those days.
That's right, because you're going to be in attendance there at David Booth. Game number 2 of 2025 for Alvin Reid. And so you get to see how KU is able to attack West Virginia, which has had a tumultuous start to era number 2, if you will, under Rich Rodriguez. A nice victory in the waning seconds, literally, of that contest. Backyard brawl.
And it was that's a true rivalry game.
Yeah.
And a true rivalry game that was in West Virginia. And Pitt did everything but win, but I'll give West Virginia credit for winning that game because the week before you lose on the road to Ohio, a tough MAC team.
Precisely.
And you're playing in a stadium that seats 35,000. That's tough. But West Virginia bounced back, fell behind, won the game, had to score points. I give them credit. 13.5. I'm going back to my same old here. Who is Kansas to be giving 13.5 points to anybody? Do they cover? I say no. I say they win, but come on, show me Jayhawks, because I just don't, like I say, maybe I'm being skeptical, because remember I said after the Missouri game, I said I think KU may be better than I'm giving them credit for, but you can't rush for 11 yards. And in some conversations I had with folks on, in Lawrence and whatnot, they said they really think that was an aberration. Missouri is very, very good against the run. They think that's an aberration. Prove it. Prove it to me.
They proved it to me week 1, though, against Fresno State.
That's true. They banged.
I thought so.
Right. All right. I give you that. But come on now. You got to rush for more than 11 yards.
Fair.
And I think you will, but at the same time, man, 13.5. Woo! I don't know. So I'm gonna give West Virginia the nod on staying within 2 touchdowns. I am going to play the over at 54.5, 54.5. Now, this will be the one we're scratching our heads about that Illinois spread. This is the one where KU's got 35 points at halftime, or some nonsense like that. And I'll say, they did know something about West Virginia and their ability to play in this game. Because that seems outlandish to me, but this one doesn't seem as far-fetched as Illinois.
Yeah.
And watch this one hit the net. Now, KU's going to win this game by 21 points or more. I could see that happening, but come on, Jayhawks, prove it to your skeptical biggest fan here that you could jump on them, put them down, and hold them down.
Here's what I know. With a few more days, more than a few days, to recover, Bengali Kamara, who was not supposed to play at all against MU.
He told the coach, I'm playing.
He did.
He told the coach, I'm playing.
Which I love if he can.
Right.
And he was effective.
He was effective. Played, 25 5 plays, and you
Yeah.
thought you were going to play 0?
More than just a limited rotation.
Yes, exactly.
So he's back. You would assume if he's not getting full reps at this point, and he shouldn't have to against WVU. However, he's out there starting. He's giving you one of your premier playmakers on that side of the football. I was also very quizzical as to why in that game, with the exception of the second half, you're trying to inch your way back into it in Como, obviously, border showdown. What was happening there with Cam Pickett? I had talked with you about that a couple of days leading up to the game. They managed his reps against Wagner. Something else was happening, lower body, what have you.
Right.
Either way, Henderson, Pickett, etc. I also was stunned, frankly, at some of the other complimentary guys stepping up in that atmosphere in mid-Missouri.
Right.
Now you are decidedly more healthy. You've had more than a week. KU, Alvin, don't worry, my man. Enjoy your trip. You're going to run it up by 3 tunnies tomorrow night.
And KU also has they have a kid they get some depth back too. The kid that came from transferred from my gosh, I'm drawing a blank. I believe it was.
You're not talking about SIP.
Right. Defensive linebacker. I think from Rutgers.
Yeah, there you go.
He's going to play his first game.
See?
He has not played. Mm-hmm. Now, he might not be in the front, starting, but just having that body and a guy who had played some Big Ten football out there on the field, that's going to help. So I still prove it to me.
Apparently, I'm in the front leading the parade for the Jayhawks heading into this
That's
one.
okay, because, I watched the game. You saw it in person. I watched it on TV. I did come away with KU might be better than I'm giving him credit. Now, I thought KU was going to make a bowl game this year. Now I come away thinking, now look, you dust West Virginia, okay? You're in the mix for a better bowl game.
Yeah, because I feel as if I know what I'm getting now from the offense.
Yes,
it's almost icing on the cake if DK McDonald's unit continues to grow. If you're generating buzz, if you're creating stuff on that side of the football, scoop and score, whatnot, seriously, that is the difference between being a contender in the Big 12 and competing for the title.
Yes, and that's exactly what I'm saying. And then you got a week from then you get Cincinnati. I mean, I'm not saying that you have to win these 2 games, but you should be able to handle West Virginia. You win. I'm just saying win. And then the next week you should be able to win. Mm-hmm. And if you're 4-1 and your only loss is to Missouri, who by then, they put one on South Carolina. Missouri's now top 15?
I think you're still on the fringes of, I'm just going to say it, low 20s because you have UMass the following week. Nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
Alabama on the 11th.
Yeah, okay, I see what you're saying.
Still, body of work.
Plus South Carolina is not bringing all that.
Not the same.
Right. And then and juxtapose that, which ain't fair. If Missouri should figure out a way to lose that game, now Missouri tumbles all the way out of the top 25. Yeah.
But you were in that game. You had jumped out to a 21-6 lead in that contest. The final score wasn't indicative of the result, how it unfolded. It's a good win, period.
It's a good win.
It's a good win.
Right. So, yeah. So, in other words, yes, if they can manage to win, and look, like I'm saying, hey, y'all, don't worry about no 13.5. Don't worry about playing in the Big 12 championship game. Don't worry about any of that. Beat West Virginia by a point, beat Cincinnati by a point, go to 4-1, and let's get ready to play.
I respect the restraint. I know you're going to have a great trip regardless.
I'm looking forward to it.
Hey.
That's one reason I'm going to be in the house. Because I said, no, I need to get up here for this West Virginia game. And for all you college football fans out there, Missouri went through this transformation when Gary Pinkel took over. Hey, Alvin, how many tickets you need has now turned into, hey, Alvin, we can give you a discount on a ticket. I'm like,
right?
Huh? Right. Me and 20,000 other people, watching Texas Tech be up 28-3 at halftime. Mate. And now, hey, dude, right, we can get you a good seat in section 113 for a discount.
Lance Leipold, you beautiful man.
Wait, and one last thought. Oh, you know who I got my eye on?
Tell us.
Wisconsin. They're going to offer Lance Leipold that job. We have a good season, man.
Focus on the present, though. Focus on the present. Stay in the moment.
I am, but I'm just saying. Come on. Wait, they just announced today that they're not going to do Kansas Relay. It's been going on 110 years. It costs a lot to put on this show every year. Sure. So they announced it's not gone forever, but it's kind of, trying to keep up with this $20 million and this and that. Where's the money coming from? Mm-hmm. All that kind of stuff. You need to find some money. Give this man that money. Coach Leipold, Please don't go to Wisconsin. Please stay here.
Hey, maybe all you have to do here, convince Alvin. I know you have the sway. I know you have the power. I know you have the influence here. Convince the powers that be in Madison to head toward Billy Napier more than anything else, because I'm just going to say it. He's not going to be long for the gig in Gainesville. He was rescued last year with that 4-game winning streak to finish the season. But here, as we move along to the last of our 7-pack of picks on the College Football Connection, Florida in a world of hurt, to put it lightly, because, yes, this is yet another clash against an in-state rival, against a team that has been able to ascend all the way to number 4, the Canes. We talked about KU trying to really ascend, vault its way up to the top of the Big 12. But right now, the ACC, frankly, the road to that title, that's going through Hard Rock Stadium.
Absolutely.
Because the Canes have been nothing but dominant. You understand why this squad has moved now to 8.5-point favorites. I still think that number, frankly, is very, very low for this contest. It is the College Game Day Showcase. So what could have been, we will continue to wait at Memorial Stadium. Regardless, Miami, Carson Beck, they are doing the thing in South FLA, whereas last week, Alvin, we were jostling for position. We were thinking about all the different components there between Florida and LSU. Now, they didn't exactly light it up on the scoreboard. Ultimately, LSU pulling away, thanks in large part to the continued struggles of DJ Lagway in a season so far that has been defined by middling play from the top-tier SEC quarterbacks. Lagway lagging at the absolute bottom. 5 interceptions in a game that we expected, he is going to have to put on a heroic-ish performance, because Napier in dire straits, this program, people are more than upset. Don't know what happened there, because the LSU defense, I will give credit to Blake Baker's unit. LSU's offense still isn't nearly on par, but I have no idea here. No idea in a desperate situation what to expect from Florida. So when I'm viewing this from afar, trying to take that 50,000-foot view, and I see that Miami is only favored by 8.5, with how explosive this offense can be, what it did last week despite the weather, thank you very much. Go Canes.
Yeah,
minus 8.5.
Okay. LSU, 20-10. Florida's got the ball driving. The 5th interception.
5.
Right. Brian Kelly acts a fool in the press conference after the game, 2010. You're like, where's dude, if you had just thrown 3 interceptions and we kicked, 2 field goals instead of drives coming to an end, we would have had the ball down less than a touchdown.
What are you talking about, man? Why are you saying these things? I'm going to pound this table. I'm going to pound you. How dare you? Here's an apology. Right. 48 hours later means nothing.
In-state. I just got a feeling. It's not a feeling that Florida wins at Miami, but I do think that they cover the 8.5.
This was your feeling last week, right?
Yes.
That was okay.
Oh, wait. Okay. And here's the thing. You talk about some psychotic reasoning here. South Florida beat Florida, and Miami blew South Florida out. And didn't I say there'd be a delay in the game?
You did.
Right. There was a delay, and Miami came out and just commenced to slapping South Florida around, just like it was before the delay. I'm like, okay, maybe Miami's per damn good.
South Florida just should have exited stage left.
Pretty much. Like, okay, all that we're going to win the national championship talk. Maybe you might want to, a little bit. But I'll tell you what, Florida, Billy Napier, they hung at LSU. Now, whatever LSU's problems are, I think it's a more difficult game when you're playing at LSU with all the weight of the world on your shoulders. If if you're Florida, then going to Hard Rock Stadium, which will be jam-packed, which will be rocking. But I think Florida finds a level of, like a base level of competition. And I think Miami, last week was kind of there like, look, South Florida's coming in, spitting nails.
Uh-huh.
And you punched them and you beat them up and you took care of your job. Can you do it 2 weeks in a row? Because a desperate team is coming to Miami. I think Florida stays within the 8.5. Late touchdown. Instead of throwing that 5th interception, you score a touchdown and now you pull back within 10. I can see that happening. So I'm gonna I'm going to take my points. I'm going to take Florida. I'm going to take my 8.5 points.
How about that over-under figure, though?
I'm leaving that one alone. Once again, I'm leaving that. I told you I had one for every pick. I said, no, of the 7 games, that's the one I'm leaving alone.
Yeah, it's too high for me.
It's too high for me, and I don't see Miami beating the hell out of Florida like they did South Florida, because that's why that over shot up, because you said, like, did you think Miami would score that many points? Never mind South Florida. Did you think Miami would score that many points? Like, no, I didn't. So if they do it again, I won't be taken aback because I'm leaving that over under alone.
Only 2 teams have not let me down, albeit early in the 2025 campaign. When it comes to the picks, that would be MU and that would be the Canes as well. So I'm staying away from the over under there. However, Miami, at least between 10 and 14. I feel confident about that one, Alvin, and we hope that you are confident out there as well in the audience, having listened to us, hopefully being able to experience a fair amount of success in your own right. It is going to be a fun one this weekend.
Absolutely.
We've got top 25 matchups galore. Alvin, already basically a quarter of that schedule, plus having materialized, and next week, some more primetime tilts on display. So first and foremost, have a fun trip out there to Lawrence. Time number 2 this year. Absolutely.
As I tell people, it's a straight line. You get on 70, you drive to Lawrence.
Yep. Make sure you just account accordingly.
Well, you know what I had to look at? I said, like, what time does Missouri play? You know, because we don't play till 5, so I'm probably leave mid-morning. I'm like, oh, my God, I hope it's not 11 o'clock. I mean, it wasn't. But I said, man, they play 11 o'clock or noon. I'll be driving right into all that traffic. Right? So, no, I'll avoid all that. Good luck to Missouri. You know, like I said, we played you tough, so I'm not mad at you. Good luck.
Okay.
Good luck. Now, they beat down South Carolina. Now I'm going to have to go through a week of, Missouri's going to win the national championship talk. Right. I'm not going to tamp it down.
I don't think you have to worry about that just yet. Now, when the Crimson Tide arrive October 11th, you may not be able to contain your boys' excitement then.
Well, I tell you what. Well, it depends on what Alabama does between now and then.
It's still Bama, though.
It's still Bama. Well, yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
and that would be, how do we put ourselves back on the map? How does DeBoer say, like, man, I got to get these people off my back? That's how you do it.
You've got Texas A&M. You've got a surprisingly game Vandy squad. All of those opponents down the line for MU. But we're going to be talking about Tigers, Illinois next week as well. Can the Fighting Illini remain undefeated? Knock off Indiana. We'll recap all of it, and we'll give you a brand new slate of games on 101 ESPN, the YouTube channel, and 101ESPN.com. For my man, Alvin Reid, for Marty Jenkins, my name is Bradford Bruns. Thank you very much, STL. And until we meet again, have a great one.
Thanks for listening to the College Football Connection podcast on 101 ESPN.